بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. مرحبا بكم جميعا. Welcome everyone. Inshallah, I'll try my utmost best to do these small series where I highlight certain things that are needed to highlight on different topics. So the first topic that I would like to discuss is the realities of living in the Muslim lands. The realities of living in the Muslim land. Now, this topic can be a topic that is a bit controversial, and I understand people may not agree with all of that which I'm going to state. I'm not going to say they're facts because there could be opinions to many. There could be opinions to many. However, due to my time living in the Muslim lands for over a decade, I did come to some sort of understanding into the difficulties that a person may face in living in the Muslim lands. So I'll talk about these difficulties, and at the same time, we'll talk about I mean, the difficulties of not living in the Muslim lands, because of course there's pros and cons to living anywhere in the world, especially the day and age that we live in today. Now, one of the things that a person has to bear in mind is that everyone's test is different. Everyone's test is different. Of course, all of us have different levels of patience. That's number one. We all have different walks of life. We all come from different backgrounds, and we all have different languages, mother tongues, that is, that we speak, that we're proficient in. And also, I'd like to mention that not all of us understand the Arabic language, the dialect, the culture, the Arab culture, and what have you. So therefore, it could be difficult in living in certain places of the world more so than other parts of the world. But I would like to say to you all one thing, without a shadow of a doubt, living in the Muslim lands as a Muslim is so rewarding and is so fruitful. You would see the fruits after. And not just that, but you see results, especially for those that have gone there with the right purpose. Because at the end of the day, there's an authentic narration where the Prophet ﷺ mentions, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Deeds are based upon intention. So now a person going out solely to seek a better means of financial income and to save up money and what have you, it's not the same as someone who seeks that, but also seeks to uplift ignorance from themselves and seek knowledge, maybe learn the Arabic language, living in the Muslim lands where they speak Arabic and what have you. So, of course, they're going to live different lifestyles. So that's also very important for us to bear that in mind as well. As many people, they complain and they compare themselves to others. So one thing I would say, that which will aid each and every single one of you watching this is to make sure that you don't compare when it comes to your sole purpose of why you set out to live and to go and reside within the Muslim lands. Because everyone is different. Everyone's lifestyle is different. Everyone's family setup is different. Everyone's circumstances are different. So if you compare, you're never going to succeed. Look towards yourself and your family setup and what you have and your situation, and then judge according to that. Now, from the difficulties that a person may face when moving abroad in general, whether it will be the West or here, or it doesn't matter where, but let's obviously stick to the topic that we're talking about living and residing within the Muslim lands. From the most, yeah, any common difficulties is being homesick and being far away from family. That's difficult. Now, brothers, a message I would say to you all, because of course we have to, tap in to this topic specifically and, highlight certain things that are crucial and important to highlight. And they are that men are completely different to women. Men are completely different to women. Okay? Allah Azza wa Jal created us differently. Women tend to lead or tend to lean towards the emotional side. As for the men, then we don't think about that too much. So we don't put the handbrake up and, stick onto the emotions. We just go with the moment, go with the flow. We look at other aspects. But now, brothers, it is key to make sure that if you are going to make that move, and I encourage everyone to do so because it's important to travel. You get to see different lifestyle, different cultures, and it changes you as a person as well, especially if you're just born and raised in the West. Um, when you do go and you're married, especially for those brothers that are married, I would advise you all to make sure that you realize and you understand the emotional side that a woman may go through when she's making that transition because it's not easy. I kid you not, it's not easy. It's not an easy transition for anyone, let alone now, you know, let's say, for example, she was family orientated, she was close to her family members where she was living with yourself. Maybe she's got kids, and now she's having to make that big step where she's not going to see them for a long period of time. It's difficult. Okay, let's face facts. It's difficult. It's not the same for you, for example. You just pick up your bags and just, Bismillah. So therefore, make sure you understand that. Make sure you understand that. Another thing that I would say that's crucial for us to all understand, especially us brothers, is that don't expect her to just go past it and look at the bigger picture. Because of course it will come eventually where she'll kind of warm up to the idea, but it's going to be difficult. Their hormones are completely different. They're up and down. Sometimes they don't even understand what they're going through at the time when they're going through certain, emotional side or emotional things towards their body and that which they're going through. So you have to try your best to be emotionally sympathetic. You have to. It's important, ikhwa. It's very important, brothers, because at the end of the day, you decided to get married, so therefore you have to be prepared to be there emotionally for your wife. It is important. It is important. The Prophet ﷺ says, خُلِقْنَا يعني the women folk خُلِقْنَا مِنْ ضِلْع. They were created from a rib cage. You see that rib? That rib is crooked, okay? And if you try to go to تستقيمها, if you try to go and straighten it, كسرتها. يعني you what? You break it. And if you leave it, فإن تركتها إعوج. إعوج, literally like is if you leave it, then it's going to remain crooked because it's crooked generally. The rib cage is crooked. So now, what's the hadith? What does the hadith end with? The Prophet ﷺ says, فَاسْتَوْصُوا بِالنِّسَاءِ خَيْرًا. So be kind and gentle to your womenfolk. And that's key and that's important and crucial, I think, for all of the brothers out there that want to make that move and live within the Muslim lands because it's going to be difficult for them. You have to bear that in mind. If you bear that in mind and you're there emotionally for them, you try to warm them up to the idea, convince them of the better, life that you're going to have and what have you, then inshallah, it'll be possible and it'll be easier for her and it's easier for you as well. You know, happy wife, happy life. Okay, let's get to the main topic now. With regards to the whole feeling homesick, that's number one, I would say. Everyone, I think, goes through it. They feel homesick. It's difficult for them. And, it could really get too much, especially because most people that go to the Muslim lands, they don't they don't necessarily know the Arabic language. So once again, if you don't know how to communicate and converse with those that are there, it's going to be difficult. The second thing that I would say that I believe is very difficult for people is the whole culture and understanding and digesting the culture, especially for those that have never been exposed to the culture living in the likes of the Middle East or the other Muslim lands where they speak Arabic, I would say, or even another place. But let's talk about the Middle East because that's where predominantly most people move. They move to the Middle East most cases, especially from the West. So I'd say a lot of people don't understand the culture, and it puts them off and it makes that transition, especially the first stage, it makes it a bit sour. But my advice to you all, you know what, let's mention the points and then we'll mention the advice at the end. So that's another thing that you have to bear in mind is the culture. The culture is different, they're very different, of course, compared to the West. You can't compare. Another thing as well, which is leading me to the third thing, is that a lot of people have high expectations when they move to the Muslim lands. We mentioned in the beginning, a person should see towards their intention. And we know that deeds are based upon intention. Authentic narration, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ فمن كانت هجرته إلى الله ورسوله فهجرته إلى الله ورسوله. So it all goes back down to what your intention is for, يعني why you're making that move. ومن كانت هجرته لدنيا يصيبها أو امرأة ينكحها فهجرته إلى ما هاجر إليه. So you have to make sure what are you actually going for? Why are you moving? Are you moving to have a better life? You want to get extra XYZ income? You want to just be able to enjoy the sun, or do you want to seek knowledge? And all of these things you have to bear in mind. Do you want to do a bit of both? So you have to bear that in mind because people have high expectations. And then when that happens, when the expectations are not met, that's it, they get put off. And that's a problem. Another thing as well that I like to mention is that, so we've got homesick. What was number two? Homesick. I could totally forgot number two. And then we mentioned that people have high expectations. Number four would be that people compare. And that's a very, very bad thing to do. People compare and they almost want, let's say, taking it for the UK or America, and they want to find the exact same setup there. So you're now living in the mindset of an American citizen or British citizen, and you're living in Saudi Arabia, or you're living in UAE, or you're living in Bahrain, or Oman, or Kuwait, or, you know, Qatar. That does not go. You can't do that. You won't survive. You have to bear in mind that your mindset has to now change and you're living in that country. So think and live as if you're in that country and you're a resident in that country. You can't have the same mindset and compare and expect that you're going to be able to survive. It's not going to happen. You're going to come across certain things that's going to disappoint you and what have you, but because you're comparing and you have high expectations, it's not going to be a smooth journey for you. So I wouldn't advise that at all. Another thing that people, I would say, the difficulties of living in those lands is that people go there yearning to make friends with the locals. Now, look, this topic can go, I want to say it's a bit controversial. You may not agree with me, you may agree with me, it's up to you, but I've had it firsthand on experience. I wouldn't advise you as a sister or a brother to go there expecting to make friends with the locals because that shouldn't be your sole purpose of why you're going there. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. Of course, there are many people that you make friends with and what have maybe you'll meet up with. But the likeliness of that happening, especially when you don't understand the culture and the language, and you're not someone that knows how to mix and understand, and it may be a bit difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it may be difficult. So you now have to go there knowing that that shouldn't be your sole purpose. And I'm talking about everyone, whether you're a student of knowledge, whether you're going there to work, but of course the teachers, if you're now working and what have you, you mix, that's probably a bit more easier because now you're in the work environment with them. So that's obviously, you may be, prone to actually making a friend much more quicker than a person who's going there to seek knowledge. So once again, it all depends on the setup. But people sometimes they get put off, and I've seen it many times. People ask me certain questions, are why is it that, sometimes I'm treated in a way where it's a bit cold, or they're a bit cold towards me, or what have you. This is not the case for everyone, and I can't generalize and say that that's the truth. I can't disagree and agree, but I can't say that that does occur. But once again, why are you going there on the basis of you want to seek and gain friends? That shouldn't be the case. That should not be the case. Another thing I would say that, it could be a difficult and probably one of the most difficult things that a person can face is not understanding the language. Brothers and sisters, if you're going to live in a country, if I'm going to China tomorrow, I'm going to see to it that I make sure I learn Chinese. Otherwise, what's the point of me living there? I mean, what's the point? I'm not going to be able to communicate as well. I'm not going to be able to go out of my comfort zone. I'm not going to be able to just be me and express myself. I need to learn Chinese if I'm going to live in China. I need to learn Japanese if I'm going to live in Japan. So therefore, if you're going to live in the Middle East, try your utmost best to learn Arabic. You will enjoy living there even more because you now are able to speak the Arabic language. Number one, it's the language of the Quran, language of the Prophet ﷺ, of the companions, and number two, you'll be able to even seek knowledge, whether you want to or not, it's easier. You'll be able to sit under the scholars and benefit and what have you, but also you'll be able to communicate with the locals, which is key. Your neighbors, when you go to the shops and what have you, it's important. Another difficulty I would say is that people face is that a lot of times we find when and this is linked to the one I just mentioned about the language barrier, is that a lot of the times the children go to school or the parents will go and send their children to school and their children face a lot of difficulties due to the language barrier and them not understanding the language or let me be a bit more direct, the actual dialect. Because understanding Fusha is one thing, but being able to understand and speak the dialect is another thing. Because of course the locals don't speak Fusha 24/7. They maybe understand, some of them understand, but when it comes to the local shabab, the young ones, even the older ones, and what have you, when they're out and about, you don't catch them speaking Fusha. No, you'll catch them speaking the local dialect. So that's also important for you to try your best to understand because many parents, maybe they're put in a situation where they're struggling to kind of juggle trying to help their child transition and move and settle into that school. And it's difficult. It's almost like a myth, but because that child has not learned the language, or maybe you don't try to go out your way to make them learn the language. It's difficult, and that's key. Even if they don't even go to school there, but they're out and about, clubs and parks and what have you, they have to pick up the language so they know, what's being said to them and what's not being said to them. Another difficulty I think I would say is that people, when they go to the Middle East, is that they go there and they don't have a plan. They don't have a plan. So you would find that due to all of these other things occurring with these expectations and what have you, and this and that, they don't have a plan. And what I mean by that is that they think that because they're going there with this, good heart and what have you, they think now that everyone is going to help them and it's going to be okay for the rest of their life, meaning them residing there. And they don't know that something can go left and they didn't have a plan B, so therefore everything's gone down the drain now. Now, look, I want to keep it there. We're not going to talk too much more about what we've mentioned. What I would say is that in order for you to be able to understand how you can live in the Middle East and reside there and stay there and enjoy it to the fullest, then I would say that you need to watch the next upcoming videos where, inshallah, I'll be discussing and talking about how a person can overcome the difficulties and be able to almost enjoy their stay, but not just enjoy it, live it to the fullest because of the fact that they didn't, you know, step into the same mistakes and they didn't, fall into that same trap that the rest of the people have been falling in when they actually made that move. And that's the whole intent of these videos. So try and, highlight these things where you'll be able to benefit, inshallah, and you actually moving to the Middle East will be easy and it'll be smooth and it'll be enjoyable. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. I'll see you in the next video. السلام عليكم.